My husband gave me 2 snakes as pets. The eerie part? Whenever they realize I'm watching, they start mating, ferociously, shamelessly. It's enough to make me turn away in a flush of heat. Then, out of nowhere, the feed flickers into my vision like a digital hallucination. Wow, the female lead is a genius. Getting the system to turn them into snakes so they can flaunt their love, right under the wife's nose? Iconic. LOL, they're going at it like it's a honeymoon, and the poor side character wife is just standing there playing house. She has no idea he's going to use that snake tail to strangle her tonight. Once she's out of the picture, he inherits her millions and marries the real lead. A classic move. A chill raced down my spine. I didn't hesitate. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number of a local game processor, a man known for his lack of mercy toward reptiles. Hey Silas? I've got 2 fat ones for you. I hear the meat is great for a winter stew. 1. I was jolted awake by a wet, rhythmic slithering sound. The sound of scales grinding against scales. I opened my eyes to find 2 6-foot, iridescent spicy noodles dangling from my crystal chandelier. They were entwined in a tight DNA-like spiral, their heads swaying with a sickening sort of ecstasy, tongues flicking against one another. Their eyes looked drunken, almost human, almost as if they were smiling. A few drops of murky, white fluid dripped from their tails, landing right on the silk of my nightgown. Again. This was the 18th time they'd pulled this stunt in my bedroom. I sat up, frustrated, and called my husband. No answer. I left a voice memo, my voice tight with irritation. Mark, where did you even find these things? They're shameless. They're doing it in my room every single day. Seriously, I don't think they're even snakes. They don't act like them. They don't even care about the cold. Suddenly, the air in front of me distorted. Neon text bled into my retinas. Ah, congrats, you guessed it. They aren't snakes, honey. That's your husband and your best friend. Surprise. They're hitting the high notes while you're playing pet owner. They aren't your pets. They're your executioners. My girl Bridget is a mastermind. Before she cut ties with the system, she used her last points to get 2 transformation pills. Pure brilliance. They're literally doing it on the wife's clothes for the thrill of it, then making her clean them afterward. It's so twisted, I love it. Bridget is already pregnant. It's time to get rid of the wife. Can't have a baby bump showing in the wedding dress, right? Don't worry, the kill happens tonight. Mark strangles her, shifts back to human form, inherits the estate, and takes Bridget home. Happily ever after. The words left me paralyzed with a bone-deep cold. I looked up at the female snake. She was staring at me with a look of triumphant malice, and for a split second, I saw the shadow of Bridget, my soul sister, my bridesmaid, in those slit pupils. According to the feed, Bridget was the protagonist of this world. She was supposed to be building some grand empire with a supernatural system, but she'd decided she wanted Mark instead. She wanted my life. The system had abandoned her, but not before giving her the means to replace me. The ice in my veins turned to fire. I swear I could hear Bridget's voice whispering in my mind. Look at her, Mark. Look at how stupid she is just watching us. It's so hot. Then, the male snake's tail tightened around her, and I heard Mark's low familiar rumble. Let her watch. That's the point. I'm going to fill you with so many legacies while she watches her world burn. I bit my lip until it bled, using the pain to anchor myself. I picked up the phone again. Silas? You said these 2 were big enough for a feast? They're yours. Come get them. 2. Silas was silent for a long beat. Everyone in our gated community knew we were rivals. I was the animal lover who rescued strays. He was the man who ate anything that crawled, often tormenting the creature before he butchered it. When Mark first brought the snakes home, Silas had smelled them from across the street. He'd offered me $2,000 on the spot. I told him to go to hell. Cassidy? Silas finally rasped. What kind of game are you playing? Is this a trap? You want them or not? If you don't show up in 10 minutes, I'm calling the guy in the next county over. Wait. Don't you dare give those beauties to anyone else. I'm coming. Keep them locked up. I'm on my way. The moment I hung up, the snakes tumbled from the chandelier. They began to slither across the bed in a frantic, panicked mess. Bridget's shrill voice echoed in the room. Is she crazy? Why is she selling us? Mark's voice was more hesitant, analytical. Relax. We know how much she loves animals. She spent 2 months nursing us like babies. That doesn't just change. Then what is she doing? It's a play. She hates Silas. She's probably setting him up. She's told me a dozen times she wanted to take that man down. Right. She told me the same thing. Bridget seemed to exhale. Her tail brushed against him again. They started up again, right in front of me. The female snake arched her neck like a concubine seeking favor in an old period drama. Baby, the antidote from the system arrives today. We need to hurry up and finish her off before we shift back, right? Mark's yellow eyes drifted toward me. His black tongue flicked out, tasting the air near my face. He didn't speak. Bridget hissed at him. Why aren't you saying anything? Are you getting soft? You still love her, don't you? I knew it. You're just using me. The female snake slithered over to my dresser, her coils wrapping around a silver-framed document. She looked back at Mark, her eyes welling with a strange, reptilian moisture. You kept your anniversary souvenir. You can't bring yourself to kill her. Before she could finish, Mark's tail whipped out like a thunderbolt, shattering the glass. The shards pierced the paper. It felt like they were piercing my heart, too. Everyone knew the story. Mark was the high school dropout who cleaned up his act to impress me. He studied until his eyes bled just to get into the same university. We'd kept our acceptance letters framed together for years, a symbol of his devotion. Now his tail slammed into my letter with a pure, unadulterated venom. His voice was a ghostly growl. She's terrified of water. I'm going to coil around her throat with this body she loves so much, and I'm going to hold her under until the light leaves her eyes. I stood there, stunned by the sheer depth of his cold-bloodedness. I had been nothing but a savior to him. When his business failed, I bankrolled his lifestyle. When he was depressed, I gave him space and luxury. I had treated him better than I treated myself. Why did he hate me so much? I looked at the feed. I knew he hated her. The more she helped him, the more he loathed her. No alpha male can handle his wife being the breadwinner and the brains. That acceptance letter? It's a reminder that she's better than him. Every cent of her money he spends feels like a slap to his ego. Love died a long time ago, only resentment remains. Ha ha ha, she deserves it. What's the point of having money if you don't know how to act like a submissive wife? Bridget is smarter. She knows how to stroke a man's ego to get what she wants. I let out a dry, self-deprecating laugh. My kindness was his cage. My generosity was his insult. I walked straight toward the snakes. They thought I was going to stroke them, to apologize. They were motionless as I grabbed them and shoved them into a heavy burlap sack. But as I went to pull the drawstring, Mark's head shot out. He moved with lightning speed, coiling his cold, muscular body around my neck. 3. The icy pressure tightened around my throat. His head rose, his eyes fixed on mine, his tongue lashing against the tip of my nose. His tail tightened around my wrist like a handcuff. I was ready to fight, ready for everything to end right here. But then his eyes shifted. Mark, what are you waiting for? Do it. Bridget screamed from inside the bag. Mark didn't tighten his grip. Instead, he slid his coils down to my abdomen, hovering there as if protecting a kill. She's pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked down at my flat stomach. Impossible. Mark had been traveling for months. We hadn't been together in ages. Bridget hissed, her voice dripping with fury. I knew it. She's been playing the loyal wife while sleeping around with some loser. The child is mine. Shock after shock. My mind raced back to a dream I'd had 2 months ago. A dream of a massive serpent coiling around me in the dark, the weight of it crushing the breath from my lungs. I'd woken up drenched in sweat. It wasn't a dream. It was him. Oh, I see. Bridget's voice turned small, wounded. If she's carrying your baby, I'll just go. I know you won't hurt your own blood. I'll leave you 3 to your happy family. Everything we had was just a dream. Mark immediately hooked his tail around the bag to comfort her. Don't do that. When did I say I'd choose her? I only want children from you. Her baby? It's just an ant I haven't stepped on yet. He looked back at me, his eyes dead. We'll send them both to the afterlife together. They can keep each other company on the long walk down. I clenched my fists. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Silas's rough voice boomed through the door. Cassidy, open up. I'm here for my meat. 4. The 2 snakes froze. With a coordinated movement, they slithered out of the bag and back up to the high rafters of the living room, coiling out of reach. I opened the door and let Silas in. They're inside, I said, my voice hollow. Catch them yourself. Do whatever you want with them. I don't want to know. I turned and walked toward the kitchen, closing the door behind me. The feed went into a frenzy. Wait, is she really leaving? Is she actually selling the protagonists? No way. Mark and Bridget are panicking. They were going to kill her the second Silas left, but if she leaves the room, they can't get to her. Oh no. Silas has a machete. Wait. The antidote just arrived. Bridget, quick, eat it. If they turn human now, Silas can't touch them. Eat it. There are only 2 pills. If you miss this window, you stay snakes forever. Antidote? My nerves caught fire. If they shifted back now, I was a dead woman. I spun around and threw the door open. The living room door slammed against the wall with a crack like a gunshot. Silas was already inside, his heavy rubber boots tracking snow and mud onto the pristine hardwood. He held a rusted, broad-blade machete in one hand and a heavy canvas sack in the other. His eyes were locked on the vaulted ceiling. Well, well, Silas grunted, a greedy grin splitting his weathered face. You weren't kidding, Cassidy. Those are some monsters. Look at the meat on 'em. Up in the rafters, Mark and Bridget were frozen. But not for long. A sharp, digital chime echoed in the room, a sound only I could hear. The air directly above the glass coffee table shimmered like heat rising from asphalt. Two glowing, golden capsules materialized out of thin air, spinning lazily as gravity took hold. The antidotes. The feed exploded across my vision in a frantic blur of neon text. The pills. They dropped. Bridget, grab them. Turn back now and snap the wife's neck. If Silas gets them, it's over. Move, move, move. The two massive snakes plummeted from the beams. They didn't even care about the fall. They hit the Persian rug with a heavy, wet thud, instantly coiling like springs. Their yellow eyes weren't on Silas. They were locked onto the golden pills bouncing across the glass table. I didn't think. I just moved. I sprinted across the room, grabbing a solid bronze bookend off the console table as I ran. Silas, misinterpreting the snake's sudden dive as an attack on him, let out a war cry and swung his machete. The blade caught Bridget mid-lunge. It didn't sever her in half, but it bit deep into the thickest part of her iridescent body. A horrifying, high-pitched screech tore from her jaws. A sound that shouldn't have come from a reptile. Blood, thick and unnaturally dark, sprayed across the white sofa. She thrashed wildly, knocking over a lamp and tangling herself in the heavy velvet curtains, completely missing the coffee table. Mark, however, was faster. He slithered under Silas's swinging arm, his jaws unhinging as he lunged for the first golden pill. I hit the coffee table feet first, sliding across the polished glass. I brought the heavy bronze bookend down with every ounce of rage, betrayal, and terror I possessed. Crack. The bronze smashed into the glass just as Mark's snout reached the first pill. The capsule shattered into a burst of fine, glowing dust that instantly evaporated into the air. Mark recoiled, letting out a hiss so violent it vibrated in my chest. He snapped his massive head toward me, his slit pupils dilating into black voids of pure hatred. No. She crushed one. Bridget's pill is gone. One left. Mark, eat the second one. Eat it and kill her. The second pill was rolling toward the edge of the shattered table. Mark coiled his muscles, preparing to strike at it. I didn't try to grab it. I kicked it. My heel struck the golden capsule, sending it skittering across the floor. It bounced over the hearth and landed directly in the roaring flames of the gas fireplace. It popped like a firecracker, emitting a brief puff of acrid green smoke before turning to ash. Silence fell over the room, save for the crackle of the fire and the ragged breathing of Silas. Mark stared at the fireplace. His muscular body went completely rigid. Even through his reptilian features, the sheer, crushing weight of human despair was unmistakable. He was trapped. They were both trapped. Forever. Bridget, still writhing in the curtains, seemed to realize what had happened. She let out a pathetic, gurgling wheeze. The feed went dead silent for 3 seconds. Then, the chaos resumed. She burned it. The NPC actually burned it. It's over. Bridget is stuck as a snake. A bleeding snake. Mark is going to tear her apart. Mark slowly turned his massive head back to me. The look in his eyes wasn't just predatory anymore. It was pure, unadulterated malice. He didn't care about the money now. He didn't care about the estate. He only cared about vengeance. He lunged. Not at me. At Silas. Silas raised the machete, but Mark was a 6-foot rope of pure muscle. He whipped his tail around Silas's ankles, ripping the man's legs out from under him. Silas hit the floor hard, the machete clattering out of reach. Before the butcher could even draw a breath, Mark was on him. The snake wrapped around Silas's torso in 3 thick coils. I heard the sickening pop of ribs giving way almost instantly. Silas's face turned a violent shade of purple, his hands clawing uselessly at the iron-hard scales crushing the life out of him. Cassidy. Silas choked out, blood bubbling at the corner of his lips. I backed away, my heart hammering against my ribs. I knew Mark was using Silas to send a message. He wanted me to watch what he was going to do to me. But I wasn't the docile, naive wife anymore. I didn't run for the front door. I knew Mark was faster than me in a straight sprint. Instead, I grabbed Silas's dropped machete from the floor. Its handle was slick with sweat and grime, but the weight of it felt grounding. Mark gave Silas one final, brutal squeeze. The butcher's eyes rolled back in his head, and he went limp, dropping to the floor like a discarded ragdoll. Mark uncoiled slowly. He slid over Silas's body, leaving a smear of blood on the hardwood. He raised his upper body off the ground, towering over me, his tongue tasting the air. I'm going to squeeze that bastard child out of you, his eyes seemed to say. And then I'm going to take my time with your neck. You think I'm afraid of you? I whispered, my grip tightening on the machete. I glanced at the floor-to-ceiling glass doors that led to the backyard patio. Outside, a brutal winter storm was howling, dumping inches of snow onto the frozen concrete. Mark lunged. I threw myself sideways, the heavy snake missing my shoulder by inches. He crashed into the drywall, leaving a massive dent, but instantly whipped around to strike again. I didn't swing the machete at him. I swung it at the glass doors behind me. The tempered glass shattered outward in an explosion of crystalline shards. Instantly, a blast of sub-zero wind screamed into the living room. The temperature plummeted in seconds. Snow swirled across the Persian rug, instantly melting into the pools of blood. Mark froze. Literally. The moment the freezing air hit his scales, his lightning-fast movements stuttered. Reptiles are cold-blooded. They rely on their environment for heat. Without it, their muscles lock up. Their metabolism shuts down. I stepped backward out onto the snow-covered patio. The wind bit through my thin silk nightgown, chilling me to the bone, but the adrenaline kept the shivering at bay. "Come on, Mark," I yelled over the howling wind. "You said you wanted to hold me under? Come get me." Mark hissed, a low sputtering sound. His pride, his ego, his burning hatred, it was all too much. He couldn't let it go. He slithered forward, crossing the threshold into the freezing blizzard. The moment his belly hit the snow, he visibly shuddered. His coils, previously thick with lethal tension, began to slacken. He tried to rear back to strike, but the movement was agonizingly slow, like a video playing at quarter speed. The feed flickered wildly in the corner of my eye. He's slowing down. The cold is shutting his nervous system down. What is she doing? The wife is a psycho. She's baiting him into hypothermia. Get back inside, Mark. You're going to die. Mark realized his mistake too late. He tried to turn around, his yellow eyes darting back toward the warmth of the fireplace. "Oh no you don't," I said. I stepped forward and brought the heavy, rusted boot of the machete down on the center of his back, pinning him to the icy concrete. He thrashed, trying to wrap his tail around my leg, but the cold had robbed him of his strength. His tail just slapped weakly against my calf. I stood over him, the snow whipping through my hair. I looked down into his eyes. There was no defiance left. Only terror. "You know," I said, my voice steady, "I used to feel guilty. I used to wonder if my money emasculated you. If my success made you feel small. But looking at you now, crawling on your belly in the snow." I leaned down closer, ensuring he could see the absolute contempt in my eyes. "You were always a snake, Mark. The system just made it visible on the outside." I raised the machete. Mark's mouth opened, trying to form a human plea, but all that came out was a pathetic, cold hiss. I brought the blade down. Severing the head was cleaner than I expected. The heavy body writhed in the snow for a few seconds, driven by dying nerves, before finally going still. The blood that pooled around him froze almost instantly. I stood there for a long moment, chest heaving, letting the freezing wind wash over me. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing alarm echoed in my skull. I stumbled back inside the living room. Bridget was still tangled in the curtains. She had stopped moving. The gash from Silas's machete had bled her dry. Her dull, lifeless eyes were fixed on the shattered glass of the patio door, having watched her lover die in the snow. The neon text of the feed turned a blinding, glitching red. Critical error. Host Bridget deceased. Protocol 404 initiated. Seeking new compatible host. Scanning vicinity. Target acquired. Binding to Victor. A massive jolt of electricity surged through my veins. The cold from the patio vanished, replaced by a deep, pulsing warmth that settled in my chest. A mechanical voice echoed directly inside my mind. System binding complete. Welcome, Host Cassidy. You have inherited the previous host's remaining balance. 0 points. However, as a reward for successful binding through combat, you have earned 1 platinum cleansing request. I stared at the glowing blue text floating in the air. A cold, cynical smile touched my lips. Bridget thought this system made her a god. She didn't realize it was just a tool. And tools belong to whoever is left holding them. Host Cassidy, how would you like to use your cleansing request? My hand drifted to my abdomen. The thought of Mark's monstrous spawn, a creature conceived in deceit and reptilian horror, growing inside me made my skin crawl. Purge it, I commanded aloud. Get this parasite out of me. Request acknowledged. Executing. A sudden, intense heat bloomed in my stomach. It wasn't painful. It felt like a fever breaking. I doubled over slightly as a wave of dark, foul-smelling liquid rushed out of me, soaking into the fabric of my nightgown. I stood up, breathing heavily, but feeling lighter, cleaner. The suffocating pressure that had haunted my dreams for the past 2 months was entirely gone. I looked at the feed. The chat was completely silent for the first time. They were watching a side character rewrite the code of their universe. Are you still watching? I asked the empty room. The chat slowly started to trickle back to life. Is she talking to us? She can see the feed. The new host can see us. All hail the new queen. This is way better than Bridget's boring romance arc. I ignored the sycophants in the chat and walked over to Silas. The man was breathing shallowly, his chest bruised a gruesome mix of black and purple. He was alive, but just barely. I grabbed my phone from the kitchen counter and dialed emergency services. Yes, hello? I need an ambulance at 442 Crestview Lane. A wild animal broke into my house and attacked my neighbor. Yes, he's breathing, but he's in bad shape. I hung up before the operator could ask more questions. Then I looked at the two massive snake carcasses, one headless in the snow, the other tangled in the bloody curtains. Silas wanted them for stew, but that seemed too brief a legacy for Mark and Bridget. 2 months later, the spring sun was shining through the massive bay windows of my newly renovated living room. The shattered glass doors had been replaced, the bloody Persian rug burned, and the heavy velvet curtains swapped for light, airy linen. I sat in my favorite leather armchair, sipping a cup of Earl Grey tea. My financial portfolio was booming. Without Mark draining my accounts for his business trips and investments, my net worth had doubled. The life insurance policy I had taken out on him years ago, which paid out handsomely after he was legally declared missing, was just a pleasant bonus. Silas had recovered, mostly. He walked with a limp now, but the anonymous $500,000 wire transfer he received in his offshore account ensured he never asked questions about what really happened that night. To the world, Mark had vanished, and Bridget had run away with him. A classic, cliché tragedy. A knock at the door broke the silence. It was a courier, holding a large, elegant matte black box tied with a silk ribbon. "Delivery for Miss Cassidy," he said politely. "Thank you." I tipped him generously and took the box inside, setting it on the new coffee table. I pulled the ribbon. The lid fell away, revealing layers of crisp black tissue paper. System, I thought. Show me their status. A small blue window popped up in my vision. Item: custom python skin handbag and matching stiletto boots. Material: hostile entities Mark and Bridget. Special trait: the system's residual energy has preserved a microscopic fragment of the entity's consciousness within the leather. They cannot speak, move, or interact, but they can feel the world around them, and they are completely aware. I smiled, pulling back the tissue paper. The boots were stunning. The iridescent scales shimmered in the sunlight, a beautiful, swirling mix of Mark's dark earth tones and Bridget's vibrant greens. The craftsmanship was impeccable. I ran my fingers over the smooth, cold scales of the handbag. Did I feel a faint, almost imperceptible shudder in the leather beneath my fingertips? A microscopic scream of a soul trapped in a luxury accessory? Perhaps. I kicked off my slippers and slid my feet into the stilettos. They fit perfectly. I stood up, the sharp click of the heels echoing loudly in the quiet, peaceful house. I walked over to the full-length mirror, admiring the way the boots elongated my legs. In the corner of my eye, the feed lit up. Iconic. Best host ever. No notes. I picked up the matching handbag, draped it over my shoulder, and walked out the front door into the bright, open world. It was a beautiful day, and I had an empire to run.